You've made a decision, and that decision, it wasn't impulsive. You've thought about it. Maybe you took some time to think about the opportunity to take a bigger role at work. Maybe you want to invest money in your business and you are thinking about exploring the ideas, putting the data down, the numbers down. Maybe you want to travel more. Maybe you've decided you are not taking responsibility for something in the family this time. And maybe you finally said, no, this doesn't work for me anymore. And you feel good, you feel clear, you feel at peace. And then you tell someone you love and they react. And maybe their reaction comes along the lines, do you really think that's a good idea? But what about us? You are changing. All these are possible reactions. Or there is the other side. Maybe they don't say much at all. They go quiet. Their face changes, its expression changes. You start feeling the distance happening. And then I want you to watch what usually happens inside you. 2 minutes ago, you were evaluating the decision, and then you express it to a loved one. And after that, now you're evaluating yourself. And your brain goes crazy with thoughts. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I'm asking too much. It might be the wrong timing right now. Should I leave it? Maybe they are right. And before you know it, you are building their argument for them. You knew what you wanted, they reacted. And now you're arguing against yourself. I know this one. I've done it too. Actually, I found myself in this situation yesterday with a conversation I had with my daughter. And I think it happens to very capable women far more than we realize. Welcome to Loved Without Losing Yourself. This is the Return Project. Every week, we look at one of those small moments where a woman can quietly move away from herself. Not because she's weak, not because she doesn't know better, usually because something important is at stake. Love, connection, approval, belonging, peace. And instead of jumping straight into how do I stop doing this, I want us to look at the moment properly. What happened? Where did I leave myself? What was I trying to protect? And what would returning look like right there? Today's moment is very specific. You knew what you wanted, someone you loved disagreed, and suddenly your own judgment became negotiable. I want to stay with this for a little while because I don't think this woman lacks confidence. That's too easy. Capable women that they have goals, they pursue goals, they have dreams, they don't lack confidence. Women run companies. You may be responsible for a team. You may make difficult financial decisions. You may be the person everybody calls when something goes wrong. You know how to think, how to decide. You can be incredibly clear until that decision that you are making carries a relational cost. That's different. Let's say you are offered an opportunity, a bigger role, which it will bring more visibility, maybe more travel. You really want it. You know why you want it. And then your partner says, you are already hardly here. And suddenly the question that is circling your mind isn't, do I want this opportunity? It becomes, what kind of mother wants this? What kind of partner chooses this? Am I becoming too ambitious? Am I neglecting everybody? Maybe I should be grateful for what I already have. Or maybe you decide to invest in something. That's another example. Your business. Maybe you decide that you need to evolve more. So you want to spend money on your education, on your own development. And because this is you've done your research, you looked at the numbers, and then again, someone close to you says, that's a lot of money. And suddenly, you are presenting a business case. You are over-explaining why it makes sense, why it isn't irresponsible, why it matters. And while you're explaining it to them, you start questioning it yourself. And I want to give you another example. And maybe this one, it might be even more familiar, to you. You've done something for the family for years. You were the person that done all the organizing, remembered all the anniversaries, birthdays, celebrations. You made sure that things happen. But this time round, you decided to just say, no, I'm not doing it. And then somebody comes and says, you've changed. And that sentence lands. And now, suddenly, you are not only deciding whether you have the capacity to do something, you are wondering what this says about you. You make it personal. Have I become selfish? Am I becoming difficult? Was I nicer before? And maybe because you don't want to be this changed woman that sounds selfish, you say, fine, I will do it. And that sentence happens, that declaration happens, that acceptance happens, not because you change your mind, because you wanted the feeling in the room to change. And this is why it matters. This distinction matters because there's the relationship in itself. You know something isn't okay for you. And maybe it's how you are spoken to. Maybe the pattern keeps repeating. Maybe you realize suddenly that you have been tolerating something for too long and you come out and say, this doesn't work for me. And your partner becomes angry, cold, distant. And now, instead of staying with the original issue, you start looking at yourself and you start questioning your decision, your way to communicate how you felt. And you start questioning if you communicated okay, if you were too harsh, maybe it was the wrong time, maybe you overreacted, maybe I should have let it go. And very quickly, again, the conversation moves from this is hurting me to was I wrong to say that? It was hurting me. Pay attention to all these examples. Every time you're questioning yourself, every time someone you cared about became uncomfortable, their discomfort started changing the authority you gave your own judgment. This is the part where the return project needs to become very good at spotting. This is the behavior, the actual living. You are living the original decision. You are living your original feeling. You're living your original intuition and not the label afterwards. Because you don't necessarily leave yourself by saying yes. Sometimes you leave yourself before that. It happens when you start explaining, when you start defending your decision, when you try to make more soft what you really want to say, when you suddenly become much more interested in their view than your own, when you start searching for evidence that maybe you were wrong, when you take their disappointment and turn it into information about your character. Maybe I'm selfish, maybe I'm unreasonable, maybe I am too much, maybe I'm becoming someone they won't like. And sometimes you don't even change the decision. You still go ahead. But in those times that you don't change the decision and you go ahead and do what you plan to do, you spend days feeling guilty about it. So technically, you held the boundary, but internally, you've spent the whole time putting yourself on trial. That counts too. So I think capable women are very good at making this look reasonable. We call it self-reflection. We say, I'm just considering their perspective. I'm just considering their opinions. And sometimes we are, but sometimes we are doing something else. We are making the other person's case against ourselves because we want the emotional discomfort to stop. And that's much harder to admit. And I've caught myself doing this. And it wasn't because I didn't know what I thought, I did, but someone's reaction, someone's that I loved dearly, that I loved with all my heart, and I was so scared of losing him, made me start questioning whether I had the right to keep thinking it. That is a very different problem. So I want to ask you this. What are you trying to protect? And this is where one of my existing ideas comes in. The approval contract. I think I've mentioned it before in another episode. I can't remember which one right now. And I want to be careful with that term because when we hear approval seeking, we imagine someone who needs everybody to like her. And that's not necessarily this woman. She may not care at all what most people think. She can handle disagreement, she can handle criticism, but there are certain people whose reaction matter much more. And the approval contract can sound more like, I trust my judgment until my judgment starts costing me connection. This is what I want to emphasize in this episode. I can make my own decisions. I can be independent. I can have strong opinions. But please love me when I do. Please still think I am a good woman. Please don't become distant. Please don't make me feel that becoming more of myself is costing me us. Connection matters. And if you're thinking like this, please don't take it as a weakness. Connection is important. But if I love you, your opinion matters to me. If you're hurt, I care. If my decision affects you, I need to hear that. But if I've learned that disagreement creates distance, tension, withdrawal, or conflict, of course, part of me is going to want to restore connection quickly. And one of the fastest ways to do that may be to move away from myself. I soften, I over-explain, I change, I make myself easier again, and it works. The tension almost disappears. The energy in the room feels okay. The relationship feels safer. So of course the behavior gets repeated. That's what I want us to understand before we judge it. We weren't trying to become invisible. we may have been trying to protect love or peace or belonging or our identity as a good mother, good partner, good daughter, good friend. That makes sense. The problem is what it starts costing us. So I don't think the cost is simply that you lose confidence. For this woman, for us that we've been there, I think the cost is more subtle. You built an entire life that you technically chose and still not know how many of those choices were really yours. Because nobody forced you. We need to be clear about this. And that's why it makes this so difficult. You chose this path. But every time somebody important to you became uncomfortable, you found yourself adjusting a little. Every time someone disapproved, you reconsidered. Every time somebody became distant, you found a way to make things easier. And years later, you can look around and think, who am I? How did I get here? Especially if the person that you love the most comes out and says, you know what? I don't recognize you anymore. You are not the same woman. I'm not happy. Change. And this is a huge betrayal. So small, reasonable decisions that you made in this past to preserve connection, and now the cost is this. You stopped trusting your own discomfort. You've done everything to keep the peace, and someone reacts badly to something you say, and instead of pausing and rethinking this whole behavior that you have, you immediately question yourself again. Did I say it wrong? Someone is disappointed by my no, so instead of asking, did I mean the no? You ask, am I selfish? This is how the whole conversation shifts and changes. You become extremely skilled at understanding everybody else's position, feeling their feelings, trying to guess their thoughts. And by doing that, you become less skilled at staying with your own long enough to know what you actually think. And that can be exhausting because with every important decision, when actually every important decision becomes relational, not just what do I want, but who might be disappointed, who might be pulled away, you are managing everybody's emotional response to it. And that is a lot for your emotional health, for your physical health, for your mind health. And the solution, I don't think, is to stop caring of what other people think. All of us, we care about the people we love. We want to care. We want to hear, Penelope, I think you are making a mistake. And maybe they're right. That's possible. I don't want to become so committed to self-trust that I become impossible to influence. That's not the goal, because that sounds lonely to me. But what I want to emphasize here is something more balanced. I want to listen to the other people's opinion without automatically taking their side against myself. I want my judgment to stay in the room too. I can hear, I don't like this, and not immediately translate that into, then I must be wrong. I can hear, this hurts me, and still remember why I made the decision. I can listen, think, reconsider, maybe change my mind, but I want it to be me changing my mind, not my fear. Not me moving because somebody else's discomfort became unbearable. We need to be at the same level of importance. That is the return, not stubbornness, not hardness, not I know best. Just staying present with yourself while somebody else has a different view. So this week, and I know that I might have been rambling around this, but it's so important. I want to give you this week's practice. So I want you to catch one moment again. If you find yourself in a conversation and someone's opinion matters, and you start to reacting to something that you've chosen and they didn't like it, and you might feel yourself to move, to want to over-explain, to defend, to reassure. Maybe you even start considering changing your plan. I want you to stop again for a couple of seconds and remind yourself what you thinking about this decision that you made before you knew what they thought. If you can't find a situation today, go back 10 minutes, go back 2 days. What did you know before you saw their face? Remind yourself why you made that decision, why that decision mattered to you, what you have considered, and stay with that answer, with that realization for a moment, and then listen to them, then listen to what they had to say. Maybe you given information that it was not very clear. Maybe they given you information you didn't have. Maybe they have a point. Maybe they are completely right. That's totally fine. Change your mind. But don't confuse discomfort with evidence. Someone being disappointed tells you something about their experience. It does not automatically tell you that your decision is wrong. And that is worth remembering. And I want you to notice also something else. I want you to watch the explaining. I think explaining is one of the best clues. You say, no, I can't do Saturday. And suddenly you've given someone 5-minute speech about why. Why you're giving so much context? Why are you over-explaining? Why are you seeking their approval to your no? Can the decision still stand if they don't fully understand it? Can somebody think you are wrong without you immediately trying to convince them that you are still a good person? That is difficult, especially when the relationship matters. But I think that is where a lot of this work lives. So the question I want you to sit with this week is, whose disappointment makes me most likely to start arguing against myself? Not who is controlling me, definitely not who do I need to cut off. Just look at yourself. What happens around this person's disappointment? Do you find yourself explaining, softening, changing your answer? What are your motives? And if you're listening to this thinking, I know I do this, but I genuinely don't know anymore what I want and what I've negotiated away, that's exactly the kind of thing you can work through in a reset session. We slow it down and start separating your own judgment from the fear of somebody else's reaction. The details are going to be in the show notes. Okay, for this week, just catch the moment. You knew they reacted and you felt yourself beginning to move. Just pause there and remind yourself, ask this question. What did I think about this before I knew what they thought? Then listen to what your mind is telling you. Think. Change your mind if you need to, but keep yourself in the conversation. You don't have to stop loving people in order to stop living yourself. The woman you are looking for is still there. Is still inside of you. You just need to remember her. I will meet you here next time. Much love.